Hello everyone, welcome back to my corner of YouTube. Today I will be bringing you yet another one of my after school special style motivational diatribes. I'm speaking hyperbolically, of course, because this is hardly a diatribe. However, it is motivational. At least I hope it will be seen as such. Not all of my videos will be in this vein, as you know, but some of them are, because what sort of monster doesn't appreciate a motivational speech every now and then, right? I'm here to give you a little bit of encouragement because some of us have it in our lives, other ones don't, and if you don't, I'm here to give it to you. So, let's get into it. Today's topic of discussion is about being open to and accepting mistakes and failures in your art practice. I recently welcomed gouache into my life. Will it become a staple in my repertoire? That has yet to be seen, but already I can see the potential that is in this paint. Technically, this gouache that I chose is not traditional gouache, it is acrylic gouache, and it is quite different than standard gouache. Let's start at the beginning. What even is gouache if you have no idea? In simple terms, gouache is a highly matte, quick drying, opaque watercolor. Gouache was popular in the early days of graphic design and cell animation. Think Mad Men era, early Disney, etc., etc. It was the industry standard because of its strong color, its workability, and the integrity that it retained in the color upon reproduction. Because the color is so saturated and non-reflective, by its very nature it photographs and it reproduces well. Where watercolor is known for its translucency, gouache is known for its opacity. So they are essentially polar opposites in that regard. But like watercolor, traditional gouache can be reactivated. And what this means is that you can pick up and leave off on a piece whenever you please. You can come back to your palette or to the painting, just apply some water or mixing mediums, and voila. You can continue pushing, mushing, and mixing the colors as you see fit. Now, there are limitations to doing this, but generally speaking, you can play with the medium when it's already dry. So, what is the difference between traditional gouache and this newfangled acrylic gouache? Well, acrylic gouache behaves more like a low viscosity acrylic paint. While the pigments are highly saturated, highly matte, and opaque, like traditional gouache, the binder is an acrylic binder, not a watercolor binder. And a binder, if you don't know, is the vehicle by which the pigments of the paint are suspended. This means that unlike a traditional gouache, it cannot be reactivated, just like an acrylic paint. Once it's on the paper, the canvas, the wood, whatever, once it's on the substrate, it cannot be reopened. It is a one and done deal, no reactivation. So you might be wondering what the advantages of this are. Well, if you're interested in achieving a layered dry brush effect, which is what I like, it's easier to achieve this with acrylic gouache because it does dry quickly. If you are primarily an acrylic painter, then acrylic gouache will feel far less alien than a traditional watercolor gouache. Some acrylic artists do not enjoy watercolor and vice versa, but if you're after a strong matte finish, gouache it's for you. It's all you. That's basically my gouache 101 breakdown. Let's get into the topic, which is being immune to mistakes. We all make them. None of us are perfect. Not even you who think you're perfect. Nope. None of us are perfect. We are all hot messes in our own right, and that's okay. The faster you learn to accept it, the happier you'll be, maybe, hopefully, at least one would assume so. So while I have dabbled in gouache in the past, I've never given it a truly fair shot. I've used a white gouache for highlights in paintings, and I purchased a ungodly crappy set of Reeves gouache from the children's section of an art store that I used to work for. I never liked it. I regularly harp on all of you to be cognizant and smart about spending your money on art supplies. Don't spend unnecessarily, but definitely spend when quality is directly correlated with the price. Gouache is one of those instances in which spending a bit more is absolutely the way to go. Yes, I am aware that there are some traditional gouache paints out there that are kind of sort of okay student quality. They're not great, but they're a good starter point. I personally am a huge fan of Holbein as a brand, Holbein watercolors, inks, paints, etc. So I went with Holbein. There are also very few brands who carry this acrylic gouache paint. So I don't know, I prefer Holbein. End of story. Now, I will say that the difference in quality between the Holbein and the other brand that I used, because I did use two brands in this piece, is huge. Gouache, the Holbein is just worth the investment. So, what do I think of this gouache situation? Well, my conclusion is that I enjoy it. It is definitely tricky to use. This paint dries very quickly. Now, as I said, I've only ever dabbled. I've never attempted to create a full-on illustration using gouache as my primary medium. Now, I did go through this piece and create a mixed media work, but primarily I used the gouache. I chose to do this illustration I just wanted to go all in. I went in raw without any sketching, previous practicing, etc., etc. None of that. Why? Well, because it's me, and why not? Life is too short to spend endless hours practicing. Don't get me wrong, practicing is great, but I wasn't in the mood. Sometimes my internal processes are just so diametrically opposed, I have no explanation for it. I appreciate planning and practice sometimes, but I equally enjoy trial by fire. That's just the kind of girl I am. It keeps things spicy, and I love that. As I said, gouache is tricky. The paint dries very quickly, and I have not figured out a good dilution ratio. So some layers were too thin, some were too thick, and I found myself having to wet my brush quickly before the layer started to dry that I had placed earlier, and it was just a big kerfuffle. The great thing is that the color is indeed vibrant, and it is very easy to cover up your mistakes. When I figure out a good dilution ratio, I have no doubt that I will love this medium more than I currently do. But I'm still in the learning and experimentation phase. And quite frankly, had I spent time practicing in a sketchbook, I would have run into new problems anyway working on this paper, because this paper is not the same type of paper that's in my sketchbook. I am working larger than the size of my sketchbook, and there's a lot of different elements that go into a piece where you can be an expert in gouache, an expert in watercolor, whatever your medium of choice is, and depending on your mood that day, depending on the paper that you're working on, anything like that, that will dictate to some extent your outcome. So practicing, while I advise it, it's not always going to help you. It usually does. But sometimes, again, you have to make a mistake, because sometimes that mistake will be the better teacher than the practice. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about why I even bought the gouache in the first place. So, as you know, I enjoy experimentation. I love trying new things. And when I placed this order for the gouache, I wasn't completely foolhardy about it. I know that gouache is a pricier medium, and I was trying to keep my total under $40. In order to do that, I found a brand of gouache called, I don't know if it's Vallejo or Vallejo, I don't know, so we're just going to call it Vallejo. It was half the price for twice the amount. Now, usually this is a red flag for gouache, but I tried it anyway. I swapped one of the Holbein colors for the comparable color in the Vallejo. No, it didn't go well. The Vallejo is the red-violet shade that you see in her makeup and in her blouse. Now, it is trash. Trash, trash, trash. But, as I've said before, and if you happened to watch and or listen to one of my recent videos, which is the What I Spend on Art Supplies video, I say that while I don't always encourage spending less, it is possible to work with supplies that are of mediocre quality. It's totally possible. That I have no room for snobbery in my life. However, I'm not going to say that spending more sometimes is better. I will absolutely continue using this crappy Vallejo gouache because I already spent the money on it. I enjoy a challenge and I don't like being wasteful. But there is an important point that I would like to make about pricing. Had I no prior knowledge about gouache or about Holbein as a brand, and had I purchased only the Vallejo gouache, I would have been sorely disappointed, and I may even have been put off by the idea of using gouache again. The point here is to not be afraid to mix high and low, even of the same medium, because you never know when a low-end supply may surprise you. I enjoy high-end acrylics, and I also really love the lower-end acrylic that you can find at the craft store. Now, not all of them. I stick only to the Martha Stewart brand, but I use more expensive acrylics in conjunction with the cheaper Martha Stewart craft paint. Sometimes that works, not always. It didn't work in the case of the gouache, and that's okay. This is why you need to play. I have found that with fluid media, such as watercolor and gouache, more money generally yields a superior product. And I was able to come to this conclusion by what? Are you ready for it? Ready? Say it with me. Being immune to mistakes. Be immune to the yucky feelings that screwing up give you, because screwing up is okay in art. The fact is, the more you play, the more you learn. Period. You can watch all of the instructional videos in the world, read all the books, read every review, but until you actually get in there and get yourself dirty, you will never progress. Ever. Get off your ass. No one wants to stagnate in their art practice, so be okay with making ugly things. In the end, I do like this piece. There were a ton of mistakes that were made, but I've learned from them. And some of the mistakes I will continue to learn from in the future. The flat, vibrant colors are new for me, and I feel that I feel the gears in my brain working after working on this piece, and that is the key here. Are you somebody who purchases a stack of sketchbooks but never uses them because you are afraid of making terrible art? Well, sweetheart, you will never make good art if you are not okay from learning from your bad art. Unless you're a prodigy, guess what? You are going to screw up, and you're going to screw up a lot. Enjoy it or stagnate. That is my motivational message for you freaks today. So pick up that sketchbook and art supply you are too timid to use. Play with it, beat it up, allow it to beat you up for a minute, and the outcome may or may not be an unholy mess. If it is, accept it, enjoy it, and if not, blame it on me. I'm okay with that, but I bet you'll probably learn a thing or two. With that said, my dears, feel free to subscribe if you have not already done so. Take a peek down below for a list of the supplies that I used. A link to where you may purchase this gal and links to where you may stalk me on social media will also be down below. As always, everything you need to know will be down below. There's still a little bit to go on this video. I hope that you enjoy it, and I will see you in the next one. Let me know what you think of this piece. Let me know what you're afraid to use, and let me know if you're going to finally get off that little timid behind of yours and try something new. Let me know down below. I'll see you again in the next one.